Greetings. Welcome to my channel, Mission 919, devoted to stories and narratives and information of African achievement, well-being, and prosperity. And today I'm going to talk about Reverend Calvin Fairbank, who was an abolitionist, a white abolitionist, who was born in 1816 in upstate New York, died in 1898, also in upstate New York, town of Angelica. He was a Methodist Episcopal minister who went to Oberlin College, which was a hotbed of abolition at that point. And he was part of, as he was growing up in upstate New York, he was part of or lived during the time of the Second Great Awakening, and he became exposed to abolitionist ideas. He went to a meeting in which he heard the testimony of someone who had escaped from slavery, and it changed his life. He decided when he grew up he was going to devote his life to ending slavery, and that's what he did. He ended up rescuing, by his count, 47 individuals, including one pretty famous individual, Lewis Hayden, who became a leader of the black community on the north side of Beacon Hill, right, basically down the street from the State House, in a very important neighborhood. He was a leader of that community, but Calvin Fairbank saved roughly 47 individuals. He wrote a memoir in which he describes some of these rescues. They're all very dramatic and cinematic. Basically, a movie needs to be made of his life, desperately. There's one case where he went to a plantation. I want to say it was Kentucky, but I'm not sure if I remember correctly. But this one slaveholder who was in his 80s, and for decades previously he had raped one of his enslaved girls and had a child with her, and then raped his daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, and was planning to do the same with his great-granddaughter. Yeah, quite perverse, disgusting, shocking, but that's what slavery produced. All kinds of perversion like that. And so he went there to rescue all of them. I don't think he was able to, but I think he rescued the youngest one. In any event, in 1844 he was arrested for helping fugitives escape. He spent 4 years and 10 months in prison in Kentucky. He was pardoned, and then he went back to continuing his work of helping people escape. This is basically in the Kentucky-Ohio area, crossing the Ohio River often, sort of the other side of the Mason-Dixon line, or an analogy to the Mason-Dixon line on the eastern, East Coast. So he was caught again in. He was released in 1849. He was arrested again in 1852 after the Fugitive Slave Act, which intensified, made much more draconian the laws against helping enslaved people free themselves. And so he was caught in Indiana and basically kidnapped back into Kentucky with the connivance of the governor of Indiana, and had a show trial of a kind, and was sentenced to like 15 years, and he served over 12 years of that sentence. And the prison conditions were horrendous. He was forced to do work beyond human endurance, basically, especially working in hemp. Hemp was a profitable fiber that was converted into fabric. Actually, he was making sacks for cotton that was gonna package cotton in New Orleans and send it off to Europe, I imagine. So it's kind of ironic that he was actually being compelled to produce goods that were, in service of slavery and its and the wealth that it created while he was in prison. But he talks about how dangerous the hemp, how arduous working with hemp was, created all kinds of dust. He talks about one case, 6 of 24 or 6 of 28 workers basically dying within 2 weeks because of the heavy dust. He talks about during a significant portion of his imprisonment being subjected to corporal punishment in the form of whipping. So he was whipped mainly on his buttocks, I believe. He, by his calculation, 1,003 times during his incarceration, and received a total of over 35,000 stripes or lashes. He was hit in the head once by a guard that caused him to have problems with balance for many years afterwards. He, during his first imprisonment, his father came to visit him and died of a cholera epidemic, which was raging through that part of Kentucky. And then during his second time imprisonment, he caught smallpox in the prison. Also, because of the poor food and lack of enough food, at one point he was down to 117 pounds. He was a man of about 5'9.5", he said, and his normal weight was roughly 180 pounds. So, 117 pounds on a person whose normal weight is 180 is, shocking. So it is really quite amazing that he even survived. He was pardoned, he basically was pardoned in 1864, but in 1863, he was in Kentucky, right, which was a border state, so it was a lot of controversy about, which side Kentucky should Kentucky join the Confederacy or should it stay in the Union? And at one point, the Confederates took over part of Kentucky, or at least Frankfort, where he was, and there were on 3 separate occasions Confederate soldiers came looking for him to lynch him, but he managed to hide on all 3 occasions. So, his experience is incredible. He spent over 17 years in prison. In some ways, he's kind of similar to Nelson Mandela. He wasn't quite the leader that Nelson Mandela was, but in terms of what he suffered in prison for justice and for fighting slavery and for freeing the enslaved, or helping free the enslaved, is somewhat analogous. So he's a person that we all should know about. The fact that I just learned about him recently is an indictment on how history is preserved, how memory is preserved in the United States. The fact that he's an obscure figure in 2020 is criminal, and anything that can be done to remedy this sorry state of affairs should be done. It's damaging for all Americans, but particularly for white Americans who want or need or could benefit from real models of anti-racism. It's terrible that he's so obscure, and relative, people who took the wrong side and committed all kinds of crimes have statues all over the country. That's very sad. It's very, very sad, and it needs to change. It needs to be turned around, and I believe it can be turned around. So, in the name of the ancestors, in the name of the unborn, who are the same, Ashe, 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 and we will see you soon.